So what this shared folder is it is a place that is permissionless, meaning that no matter who gets to it from any place, they have access to it, which means that if you use this as your destination for your importing, for your tethered shooting, for all of that, you don't have to worry about any permissions, because by design, it is meant, this space is meant to be shared. It's meant to be available to all the users on the computer, so anybody can get access to this. It's only the stuff that's in here. They can't get access to, if you don't put your financial records in there or your passwords in there or whatever, they don't have access to that. They just have access to this one folder. Does that make sense? So are there questions about that? So anyway, you need to create the second user. You will then get this shared folder, and then this is where you want to actually save your sessions in Capture One. So let me... It didn't start one for you? It might as soon as we bring this up. We'll see again. Do you know what version of system you're on? The newest one. Do me a favor. Shoot me a quick email about that, really quick, and I will look into that. Because it didn't look like that was happening on these guys either. So I need to check that one out. We'll find it. Okay. Anyway, so I'm going to go back to Capture One 9. And I'm going to create a new session again. So I need everybody. Do you still have your new session dialog box open? Yep. Nope. Is everybody good? Got a new session dialog box open? We good? Okay, so for your new session, we have talked about naming convention in this class before. We're going to talk about it in another big way right now. I don't care what naming convention, well, I do care what naming convention you use. So I'm going to strongly suggest mine. But whatever one you're going to use, just realize you're going to be married to it for the rest of your life. So don't be like the Lightroom guru guy who came to train Columbia College faculty on how to use Lightroom, and he named his first session, or his first catalog, his first catalog in Lightroom flowers. And it was like, what? So for me, and this is all on our website, so if you go look in the resources on our website, I don't know that it's in in resources for week number 5 or week number 6. We're actually in week number 6. We are in week number 5, but I don't know that that's what it is. Oh, actually it is, because I've changed everything. I'll just want to see where the naming convention actually might be. It's not in this. It's going to be in the resources for either 1, 2, 3, or 4. You can find this, but I'm just going to talk you through it right now. So again, back in here, this is what I want you to name your session for today. It starts with the year. You always start with the year. You do year, month, day, not month, year, day, or not date, month, day, year. The problem with doing month, day, year is that, what we're going to do, if you start with year, month, day, all of your files for the whole rest of your life, all of your sessions will be in chronological order. They will be sorted. If they're sorted alphabetically, they will fall in chronological order. If you do it by month, day, year, what happens is that all of your Januaries will be together, followed by all of your Februaries, followed by all of your Marches, which is not how anybody wants to work. Everybody wants to work chronologically. So it starts at 2019-0225. That is the date for today, underscore. I typically put in a 3-digit code for mine right now. The 3-digit code for me is the identifier. I call it the client identifier. So for instance, if I'm doing Lord & Taylor, it's LOR. If I'm doing General Motors, it's GEN. If I'm doing Neiman Marcus, it's NEI. If I'm doing myself, it's VER. If I'm doing something for Columbia, it would be CCC. You guys get where this is going, right? It's just a quick thing to say, oh, yeah, I know who that was for. So in my case, for tonight, I'm going to do VER. You can do whatever yours you want. Underscore, the next thing you've got in here is what I call keywords. If you spell out keywords, it's Keywords, plural. It's 8 letters. You can use fewer for this, but you can't use anything more. 8 is the limit on this. And the reason I'm setting this is that there are servers all over the world that will reject, if you end up with file names that end up with more than 32 characters in total, they will reject the files. And there's a huge number of them. Is anybody in here uploading their own images to their own website? Do you ever have any problems when you do that? Do you have to name them a certain way? Can you use, for instance, can you use spaces in the name of your image file?
I've never tried, but I've never had any restrictions.
Okay, so are you more like Squarespace, that kind of stuff?
I use a site called Portfolio.
Still, it's probably the same thing. Those actually make allowances for it. When you upload your stuff, they actually change the naming convention for you. But if you're working at a straight file transfer upload to a server, they will reject capitals, they will reject spaces, they will reject anything more than 32 characters long. They will reject a whole host of characters. They reject forward slashes, colons, exclamation points, question marks, quotations. There's a whole range of things that are all rejected. So we need to avoid those things. So that's why I'm using underscores in this naming convention as well. It's also why I'm working in lowercase, because I don't want any capitals in this. But it's also why I keep keywords. Again, if you can't remember that it's an 8-character limit, just remember keywords. Count up the number of letters. That's how many you get. What that is now supposed to do is give you some hint about what it is we're doing. So the hint that I'm going to use for us here today would be C1 Pro Demo. And I'm going to count the number of letters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got one too many letters, so I'm getting rid of the O. That's what I'm actually going to call my session. Does this make sense to everyone? Are we good on this? Okay, now I don't use this. Oh, I'll work my way down here in just a second. In the location, if you click on your flyout menu here, you have options about where you can actually put your sessions. This is when I select my shared partition. This is where mine go. Until you actually build your other user, another user, you won't get access to this. And Elizabeth, I'll figure out how you get access on this new version of system to actually have this, because we need this part. That's the best place to put it. If you can't put it here, your next best place to put it is your picture folder. Your picture folder by design it's built to handle a large influx of relatively large size files, which is exactly what shooting images are. So this would be a possible place, it would be the next best place to actually put it. However, if somebody is on a network and they get access to your computer on the network, this folder will be locked to them. They do not have permission to go in and get your files to get them out, which is a problem if you want them to have permission. If it's somebody, another art director, whatever, saying, I want to work on the files, whatever, they can't get in because of the permission issue. So at any rate, just realize that that's going to happen. The worst place in the world that you can put your session is on the desktop. The reason you don't want to put it on a desktop is this. Your desktop by design is the database of your computer, and it is constantly looking at itself saying, has anything changed? And if anything is changed, it rewrites its entire database. If you are shooting tethered to this, every file that comes in is going to force your computer to rewrite the database, which will slow your computer down to a crawl. And again, you will have an art director and a photographer both trying to climb up your ass for why your computer is so fucking slow. So never the desktop. Some people say external hard drive. That's what they would shoot to. The problem with an external hard drive, even if you've got an SSD, a super fast solid state external hard drive, is the drive itself is extremely fast. So for me, that's what I have. This is an external hard drive. This has got an SSD in it. It's the fastest hard drive you can buy. However, I've got to plug it into my computer using this cord, and this cord is one of the slowest things that you can buy. So I've got a hard drive here that will actually take 6 gigabytes per second, and I've got a cord that can feed it 50 megabytes a second. Not even close. So the problem is not the hard drive, the problem is how you connect it. The computer hard drives that are in your computer itself don't have any of this. They are actually connected straight to your motherboard. So this 6 gigabyte hard drive can actually, if I plugged it into, if I actually connected it inside my computer, if I replaced the one that was in here with this guy right here, it would be writing at 6 gigabytes per second, not at 50 megabytes per second if I'm lucky. Does that make sense? So do not ever try to go to an external hard drive. If you, for some reason, have to, I guess, but you're much, much, much better off always writing to the internal hard drive of your computer and then copying to your external hard drive to do a backup or a file delivery or anything else like that. Does that make sense? There is an option. Some people say or would prefer you to shoot directly to a server. So you can imagine logging into our server here, our TCL server, and then go into Engelhard, and then go into the Dropbox, and that's where you like drop your session. Good luck with that. You are asking yourself for just a whole world of hurt. How wonky is this thing to begin with? We can't copy to it. We can't copy off of it. It's slow. So anyway, if somebody says you've got to shoot to a server, you need to get in and you need to troubleshoot it before you actually do it. You need to know if it can sustain what you're actually doing. So you've got to build a session, put it on the server, hook up a camera, and start banging out files. And I mean bang them out quick and really see if you end up choking the bandwidth that goes to that server, because you probably will. Are there questions about this part? Okay. So I am going to leave this actually on my shared partition. You guys should put yours in your pictures folder. I'm going to go ahead and say choose to that. Then the next thing that comes down, you have an option here to do templates. We're not going to do a template at this stage of the game. We will come back to this, because what a template will allow you to do is, if there is a way that you always set up your library and your naming conventions, is there something, and I'm not talking about the workspace here. The workspace is the layout of Capture One. What I'm talking about is that all the shit that we do in here, the things that you set up in terms of files and, again, naming convention, all that kind of stuff, all of that can be saved to a template, so that all you need to do is load that template and it will populate your screens for you all the time, which is a godsend if you're actually doing working for the same client over and over and over. So for the time being right now, we are going to skip template. There's a folder subfolder structure that you have. Capture selects outputs and trash. These all exist here. In most cases, people will leave these just like they are right here. However, there are some clients that prefer you to actually tag these folders with the name that you've actually got up here, because what can happen is that capture folders themselves can be simply copied to someplace else. And if that happens, what ends up getting moved is just a folder that's called capture folder. I mean, it's just called capture. That's all it's called. There's no identifier with it. The files inside should be tagged with an identifier, but the folder itself isn't. So what some people will do is they will actually copy the name. So again, I've just drug across the top. Command C will actually copy that name, come down to capture, hit a dash, and hit Command V to paste it in. And they will do it with their select folders as well, and their output folders as well. They'll do it with all of these. Now, again, I don't know very many people who still do this, but this would definitely be something for you guys to check. In my case, I don't want to do this, so I'm getting rid of all of those. I just wanted you guys to know that that actually was a possibility here. Keep thinking about that money in Paris, guys. That's all I can say. Down here in capture name, what capture name by default does is it grabs the name that you actually typed up here in the top. That doesn't mean you don't have, that doesn't mean you can't change it. You can. You can actually come down here and put in a different one. It's just doing this for you to save you time and work. Most people do not change the capture name, and there's a whole myriad of reasons why you would not want to change the capture name. So unless there's a compelling reason, do not do that. And then finally, there's this checkbox down here, open a new window. And this should be how to really fuck up your life and hate your day and see your whole day go south. How many people have ever clicked on this open in a new window? Okay, not even the my 3 and 4s in here, or my 3-star people, whatever. Okay, well, you can click on it, but there's a huge problem with it, and the huge problem is this, is that you can have multiple session windows open in Capture One at the same time. As a matter of fact, you can have an unlimited number of them. However, the problem is that your camera, when it is actually tethered to your computer, can only tether to one session. So if you've got a session that's open and your camera is on and tethered to it, and you build another session, the new session will cover your old one. Your old one will be behind it, but you won't see it. However, your camera will be connected to the session that's sitting behind it, and you will never, not ever, ever, ever in a million years be able to connect your camera to the session that you're building right now. So, in my opinion, you don't ever want to click on this open a new window because it is only a way that can hurt you. So then I'm going to go ahead and click OK to this, and it will actually build a new session for me. You will see that in the drop-down menu that we've actually got right over here, if you click on this, it keeps track of the last 10 sessions that you actually had, that you've actually built. So in your case, you will probably only have 2 of these in here, but you can see, and this is the one that I just built. I could go back to the one that had the pictures of Elizabeth in it before. I can go right back to that, click on my capture folder, and she will show up again. Or I can go into my new session here as well. And again, this will take me back to the session that I just built. Is this making sense to everyone? If you want to, you can actually clear this menu, which will get rid of all of that. It will forget all of the other things in there, but I'm going to say let's not do that right now. That's just to show you that that's what's going on here. However, one of the things that I did want to show you, I'm going to stick at this part right here, is there's another way to build a session, and the other way to build a session is this. You come up to the File menu, and you will see right up here at the top that you can do a new catalog or a new session. So I am prone to having small pet peeve things drive me absolutely nuts, and I get really angry about them, and I tell people as much as I can, many people as I can, and I get it recorded and out on YouTube as much as I can. Who the fucking idiot at Phase decided that the File menu should have start with new catalog and followed by new session, but when you click on the little plus at the bottom, it's exactly the opposite? What genius came up with that? And it's been in every session of Capture One for I don't know how long as they've had this going. So all the way back at least to version 6. And it's like, really? Sorry. So I want to go back to the session that did have Elizabeth in it. So if you can go back on click on the drop down, go back to the 201925 that one. It was so that we have actually got some images in here because we actually need to actually have a few images in here. Let me just see where I'm at, guys, on my notes. We're doing pretty good. You'll be happy to know that at the most there's only 20 minutes left of this, and we will pick this up again next week. Okay, this gets to be a little weird, but we got to look at this part right here. Okay, so we're going to start going down through the library part right here. And as we start to move down through the library, what you will see is at the very top here, this thing says Capture Folder. The thing that's right underneath it says Selects Folder. The thing underneath it that says Output Folder. And then the thing that says Trash. Come back up to your capture folder. If you click on it, our captures currently right now reside in this folder. That's actually where they are, is they're in the capture folder. To actually see what this looks like out in the real world, if you click on the capture folder to make it active, do your 2-finger swipe or your right mouse or your control click to get a drop-down menu Capture One is full of drop-down menus here. So you want to come down to Show in Finder, not Show in Library, but Show in Finder. And if you click on that, it will actually take you to this folder in the Finder. And this is a really important thing to get to, because what it will allow you to do is have a physical check to make sure that the folder you think you're really capturing to is the one you're capturing to. So in my case, it is this shared folder sitting here in the session that's got this name in the capture folder, and this is where all the captures are actually sitting. So this part is correct. That part is actually working for me. However, what you need to know about this is this, and you will also notice this is what a session looks like. So the way a session, it's built up of 6 parts. It's built up of a folder that actually has the name of the session. So when we built this thing, it's sitting right here. This is what it's called. You can see the session that I built with you guys that had, the Verser_C1 ProDem is this one sitting right down here. If I click on it, you will see that it also has 6 parts. It's got a folder that holds all the capture folder, output folder, selects, trash, and this file right here. The file that's right here is the preference file for this session. It contains all the things that you do in the session. So if you keyword in your session, it's put into this file. If you add favorites to your session, it puts it in here. All your ratings and rankings are all kept in here. All of that information is sitting in here, which is critical, because if you give your session to someone else, you want them to have access to all that information. You want them to have access to how you sorted things, the color correction that you did. So, for instance, when you guys gave me those raw files for assignment 2.1 and 2.2, all of them had lost their color correction. None of them had it, because all of that stayed behind in your session. You didn't give me the whole session. You just gave me 2 raw files. And those 2 raw files do not contain any of that information. So if I really cared about that, that's why I want you guys to always have color cards in there, because it allows me to rebalance color and I know exactly where you were at. So other reasons for that. And again, I don't want the whole session. Does that sort of make sense? So when you go to give somebody a session, what you're looking to do is copy the parent here and give them the whole thing. Inside the parent, you've got, again, this thing that's called, this is the preference file, and this is also how you can launch a new session into Capture One. So for instance, right now, the one that I've got loaded in here is the Elizabeth one. It's the one that was called the Pro Demo. If I double click on this preference file that's for the new one that I just made and double click on that, it will then take me into that session. So it's a way to actually launch things in Capture One. When things get upgraded in Capture One, what gets changed is that preference file. Does that make sense? So we'll talk about that. I don't want to get too hard at my house, so we'll talk about that later. I'm going to go back to the one that actually has the files in it by just using the drop-down menu right here. The thing that you have to remember about that, though, is that you would think the way this looks is that this capture folder thing right here is this guy right here. You would think that's it, right? It isn't. What this thing is an alias for this. So what this is saying is the way it has been set up is, yes, this is the capture folder, but you don't have to keep it that way. You can say, I prefer to have something else as being my capture folder. And if you change this, if you change your capture folder to a different folder, this alias goes to the new folder, not to this guy right here. Does that make sense? Everybody is under the illusion that these folders right here are actually these guys. They're not. What they are is they've been pointed to these guys in the beginning when we set it up. But you can say, I want a different capture folder, a different selects, a different output, and a different trash. And the link between these will be changed to some other folder. And then when you click on this guy, it isn't going to go here. It's going to go to the one you set it to go to. Hopefully that's going to become clear in just a second, because we leverage this. It's actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Okay, so that's what's going on here. Under session albums, we will talk about albums here really quickly. Let me go back to my capture folder. Let me see where we're going to get here really quick, guys. You also saw in that drop-down menu that we could build a catalog. We will build a catalog next week. I'm not going to get in there, so I just didn't want you to think that I had actually forgotten about that part, because I haven't forgotten about that part. So we've got a new session. We've got all that part, whatever. We've got through that. Oh, so you guys should know about this. So if you take a file, I'm actually going to take this very top file right here. I'm just going to click on the very top file, so hopefully everybody's got this part. And I'm going to hit the delete key, and it actually just threw that file image away. However, deleting a file in Capture, I know, I'm so sorry. I apologize to everybody for this. Everybody who does these pictures are like, they never expect it to be up on screen and recorded and all that kind of stuff. So I apologize to everyone. I do it for myself because you're going to see, we're going to import photographs of me. So you'll, to hopefully, anyway, sorry. I'll leave it at that. So anyway, I just threw that thing away. However, Capture One has a safety feature built into it. And the thing about the safety feature is that throwing a file away in Capture One is a two-step process. You can't do it in you can do it in a single step. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Most people don't. And the reason it's a two-step process, it's a safety. So that if you accidentally throw a file away, you can actually get it back. It's not gone. Now, you don't see it on our screen anymore. It's no longer in the capture folder. It actually has been moved, and it's sitting right here in the trash folder. If you really wanted to get rid of this file entirely, you would have to throw it away first into the trash folder, and then you've actually got to throw it away again. And in most cases, I don't know, I think it actually makes you go, I don't want to do this because I don't want to lose this file. I think it makes you actually go to the trash folder down here and throw that guy away. So it's sitting right here. It makes you actually go in and physically throw this into the trash of your Apple system and then empty that trash. That's how you end up throwing things away. Again, it's a safety mechanism, but it's also a mechanism that can trip you up. So, word to the wise here. I had a photo shoot going on in a place that will remain unnamed with a whole bunch of really wild, crazy digital techs who decided that they would just spend the evening after we were finished shooting in the studio and get really hammered and then start doing nudes of themselves in the set, doing really obscene things like, all that kind of stuff, right? But they were okay. It wasn't going to be that bad. They threw all the pictures away before we all got there the next day, but guess where all the pictures were? And the very second somebody had thrown something away, it was like, oh, I need that color card again. We went to the trash folder, and guess what was in the trash folder? All the pictures of them naked on the set doing all sorts of suggestive, So I'm just throwing this out here to tell you guys that this exists so that you should actually just be aware of that. You can manually drag and drop files in this whole grouping right here. So to get this thing back, you can actually simply click on the thumbnail and drag it back to your capture folder and let go. You will get this warning dialog box that opens up and says you're moving a file to a new location, and you would say yes to that, and you got it. And then click on your capture folder, and you can see that it came right back again. And we not only brought all the files back, but we actually have multi-screen setups. Oh, that's actually something I haven't talked about. We do need to talk about here really quickly. I'll show you really fast how this works. Anyway, we had multi-screen setups set up in the studio, and they were giant televisions. They were like the 40, 50-inch television, and there was one for the art director, there was one for the photographer, and there was one for the stylist, and we had all those naked pictures going on for a good 10, 15-minute show in the morning. And it was a huge studio, and everybody else, anyway. Yeah. So, one of the things I forgot to tell you guys is this. If you come up to your window, come down to Workspace, we talked about the default, we talked about the simplified tether, and we talked about the black and white editing, although I really feel like black and white editing is something that you should simply add the tool tab yourself. It's just too crowded of a space. But the last two down here, and I can't really use these down here because we don't have dual monitors, but these become really important for working in big studios, and what they are is this. It's dual monitor with a large browser or dual monitor with a large viewer. And what will happen happen is that if you click on this dual monitor large browser, it will create, you have to have a second monitor connected to your computer. What it will do is it will actually put a browser only on that second screen. Or you can do a large viewer, which will put a viewer on your second screen. Your primary screen will still have all of Capture One, but your second screen will either get just the viewer or it will get just the browser. Depends on how art directors want to look at it. So typically the way we set these things up is, as a digital tech, this is the screen that you have all the control. You set up a dual, and the second one that you actually do in the workspace is the large viewer. And what that does is it will take a screen and it will only put the giant image that's in the viewer in that screen. So an art director is just looking at the giant image, or a stylist is just looking at it, or the photographer is just looking at it. Because when I'm sitting on the floor or I'm somewhere else, I don't want to look at all this shit. I want you to be taking care of that. I want to just see the image. Does that make sense? However, once you get that set up, you can then go into your Apple menu and come down to System Preferences. And in your displays, if you've got multiple displays here, you can actually say, so the reason you're seeing my screen and this projector the same is because I'm actually mirroring this display. And that comes here in Arrangement. You would click on Mirror Displays, and then the giant screen that you've got for the art director, you can add a third screen for a photographer, and you would mirror the art director's screen, not the digital tech one that's got all the controls on it, but the art director's one. And then you set up another monitor for the stylist that, again, doesn't have Capture One on it. You are just mirroring the art director's screen or the photographer's screen, and they get, so you've got one single screen for a digital tech that's got everything, and then you've got three screens, one for photographer, art director, and a stylist that only have the large viewer on them. Does that make sense? If there was a reason that the photographer really wanted to see the entire Capture One part as well, then you could mirror that screen to the photographer while you had the viewer only for the art director, and that was what was being mirrored to the stylist. Does that make sense? It's just done here in Arrangements. So again, the way you get to this is up System Preferences, Displays, and click on Arrangements, and this is where all of this exists. If you uncheck Mirror Displays, you're going to lose this. And I'll get it up here so you can see it. What ends up happening is, what ends up happening is you see your screens like this if you don't have mirror displays on it, and it's making the distinction between the two. This little white bar that's on the top is the computer that's in control. So it's the one that's going to have all the Finder System Preferences stuff up at the top. It's the one that's going to have the dock down at the bottom, all that kind of stuff. To change this, you simply, you can actually do all sorts of things. If your physical layout is side by side, you can actually move these things. So you can click on this, and you can actually move it to the other side, just so that you keep your orientation in place. But if you want to change what's really controlling it, you click on this bar right here, and you drop it on the other one. And now this screen doesn't have any of the controls, and it's back on mine right now. If you click on Mirror Displays, they both show exactly the same thing. Oh, something else that you should know about too, though. Mine now, because I've reset all this, you see that my Capture One is really small right now. The reason it's really small is because in this drop down right here that looks like a little monitor, you'll see that it's set up to mirror that projector. You would want to mirror your Macintosh, and then it's back to the way it should look. Are we good on this? Again, guys, I'm sorry. I know that this is a lot, but this is all what you're expected to do. And I don't know any other way to do this except show it to you. Okay. I think we're almost getting to a winding down point, which I think everybody in this room will be ecstatic about. Yeah, we'll talk about one last thing really quickly then. We're going to come, gives me a good place to start next week. So when we start next week, and we'll all be fresh and spanky, whatever, we will get into the rest of what goes on here into the library. And then we will get through camera control as well, hopefully next week. Then we take a break. because what we do then is we go back to shooting in the studio, and I want you guys to really use the tools you've learned so far, and that's really about tether capturing. So it's setting up sessions, it's actually doing setting up camera, going through all of that troubleshooting part, all of that kind of stuff, whatever. So we will get through that part. And then finally, towards the end of the class, we come back into Capture One to do the really sophisticated color correcting work, outputting work, basically the rest of what you would do in Capture One. So I'm trying to spread the pain out. So there you go. The last thing I wanted to talk about though is this really quickly, and it's what happens, because we've got 3 minutes and I can do it in 3 minutes. What happens when Capture One starts to get really wonky on you and something is not working? No matter what, you cannot connect your camera. It doesn't work. Your magnifying glass tool doesn't work. You click on it and something else happens. Your color correction doesn't work. Your white balance tool doesn't work. Your folder structure doesn't seem to be working. Things freeze. They lock up. They don't work, whatever. To reset Capture One, you have to do this. This is the thing that fucks everybody up. So I'm going to show it to you first. If you go to your Finder again, go to the library again, this is where it actually all is, then we are not going to application support. We are going to scroll down to preferences, not preference panes, but preferences. And you want to click on preferences. A dialog box will actually open up. I'm going to drag this to the side so that you can see it a little bit more. One of the unfortunate things about preferences is that you would think this would just be called Capture One 9 preferences. It's actually not. They start it with a .com. So you have to scroll down here and you will see that it starts with you have extensions on the end of files like a CR2 for a Canon file or an NEF or a Nikon file. This is actually what would be the pre of an extent? It's a pre-extension? It's the one it's an extension that happens at the beginning of the file, and it's this .com. You need to actually, or not .com, it's .com. You need to actually scroll down, and what you're looking for is phase 1. You're not looking for Capture One, you're looking for phase 1. So you'll see it comes way past all the Apple ones, it comes way past. So keep going down. And it's right here. So I need everybody to look at this, and you'll see in mine, I've got several of them, but I want you to watch this Capture One 9 for just a second. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it might happen. But if we sit here long enough, what you will see happen is this. There is a third preference that will actually show up here in this list. So what you'll end up seeing is it'll have this Capture One preference, this 9 up here, this 9 up here, the 9 underneath it, and then this other one will come on and off and on and off. And the thing about that is that if you leave Capture One running while you do this, it will not work. It won't reset your preferences because the one that's hidden right now, you will not throw away. So in order to reset Capture One, you have to quit Capture One. So you quit Capture One entirely, you come back and you grab all, see that third one just showed up. See, there's 3 of them now that have all got this 9 in there. With it running, you don't get your access to the third one. So then you would click on all 3 of these guys, everything that has 9 in it. For my money, if you want to know the truth, I would click on all the ones for 8, 10, and 11 as well. Anything that has Capture One written in it, phase 1 Capture One, and throw that away. Restart Capture One. However, when you do that, you have thrown away your registration. So in order to get Capture One to function again, you need to be online again, and you need to contact, again, it'll go through the activation part of it. It'll say, yeah, I'm ready to activate now. It will take you to Phase's site to actually do it. But if you do not have an internet connection, you can't connect to it, so you can't reactivate Capture One, so you can't run Capture One. And if you are out in the field, what do you do? Yeah, Capture One wasn't working for you. You're in Gary, Indiana, shooting at the dunes. What do you do? Your phone. How many people know about hotspots on a phone? How many don't know about a hotspot on a phone? Well, now you know what you do. You actually get your hotspot to be on your phone to work so that you can log in to Phase and activate the Capture One version on your computer. And believe me, if the first assistant doesn't know this and the second doesn't know this and you are the third assistant and you know it, guess who's going to be the first assistant the next day? With a raise. I'll see you guys next week. Oh, by the way, the one thing you'll be happy about is that during the Capture One lecture part of it all, there's no assignments.
That's nice.
Do I give to you guys or what?
I emailed you about the
Great, I'll find it. I want to say this has happened before.